Welcome, everyone. It's great to see you on this lovely Wednesday. Today, we'll be talking about AI chatbots security. But before we go any further, let's maybe wait 2 minutes for attendees to connect. Before we go, I just wanted to ask a quick question. Can you see us? Can you hear us? Please comment on the chat. Okay, I can see that we are seen and hear loud and clear. This is nice. Maybe as a warm-up topic, if you could just type in where you come from, where you're connecting from. Okay, Eindhoven, nice. I'm connecting from Wrocław, and some of us are sitting in Łódź, and yeah. Okay, so basically, this webinar will be consisting of 2 parts. The first will be a panel discussion, and then we'll have a Q&A session. So if you feel like asking any questions during the panel discussion, feel free to type them into the chat. Just make sure that you put a question mark in the end of the sentence. Then we know that it's a question, actually. And the entire session will be recorded, so it will be also made available for you via email right after we finish. Of course, if you want to stay tuned, follow us on social media, on LinkedIn. You will find lots of useful updates on the topic that we are covering today and more over there. And I think that is it for the starters. Now, let me just briefly introduce myself. My name is Jacek Popko. I'm head of digital solutions at MakoLab. MakoLab is hosting this event today. And we are also teaming up with AWS. I'll give voice now to Piotr Becel from AWS.
Hello, welcome. My name is Piotr Becel. I'm working as a senior solutions architect at Amazon Web Services, mostly with customers from Central Eastern Europe, supporting them in their cloud journey. Although I am a generalist architect, cybersecurity is my special area of interest, so I'm happy to be here today.
Okay, thank you, Piotr. And our MakoLab team, Maciej Stanisławski.
Hello, everyone. I'm Maciej Stanisławski. I'm head of Team AI here at MakoLab. Formerly, we were an R&D team, research and development team. So I'm leading. I'm head of the team, and I'm leading a group of engineers. So we mainly focus on research-driven product development, and right now mainly in large language models, chatbots, and so to say the focus on AI. Maciek.
And the last one, I'm Maciej Grala. I'm working at MakoLab. I had been software developer, and some time ago I transitioned to the position of cybersecurity engineer here at MakoLab. And let's have a good talk today.
Okay, thank you, guys. Let me now start with the presentation. Let me know on the chat if you can see the screen. Okay, cool. So as I opened, the topic for today's discussion is how to safeguard data and earn user trust when it comes to AI chatbots. We already gave a brief introduction of ourselves. So maybe let's start with the discussion. As a prerequisite to that, I just wanted to make a side note that basically 3 weeks ago, on 31st of March, some of the large language models have passed successfully the famous Turing test. And I'm pretty much interested, what are the implications of that? And Maciej Stanisławski, can you comment on this?
Well, yeah, the answer depends whether you see the Turing test as something of great importance, because if you, like Turing himself, believe that if you can't distinguish between a human and a machine, that you can't say that human is intelligent and machine is not, right? So, but on the other hand, if the definition of the intelligence is still very vague, and there has been research that we tend to anthropomorphize systems, so we treat even simple systems as human-like, and everyone has a name for its Roomba, right? So one thing we can be sure of, that large language models will mimic humans and their work, and the downside of this is most probably we will have internet full of non-human, so AI-generated content, and we will have fake interactions with fake products, fake humans. So this is the downside of the whole thing. What is funny, and it's written in the paper that the scientists behind the test shown this, that if people who know how to hack models had a greater successful deconspiration of the model, so they knew if they were talking with a human or if they were talking with AI, and thanks to they knew the jailbreaking techniques, right? So they started asking and started to hack the model in some way, and that's why they found out that this is a large language model, not a real person. So this is pretty funny in terms of the LLM security that we are to discuss here. But generally, people who know something about LLM security are safer. That would be my answer.
Okay, thanks.
So what called the dark forest, dark internet? I don't remember. Dark forest is the name for it. So, but our internet is full of bots, and most content is created by AI. And as a real customers are only small percentage of the users in the internet. Yes. And what I would like to highlight is that if the large language models started to pass the Turing test, it will be even easier for cyber criminals to, for example, prepare some spear phishing, and they will be more efficient. They can automate it even further. So we don't know if we are speaking with human, with machine, and they can try to steal our data, for example. And it's even easier for them and cheaper.
Well, in the paper, if I remember correctly, it was said that basically GPT 4.5 and Llama 3.7 passed the Turing test with 73% and 56% of positive indications. But does this in any way influence on how we think about containing the models in the cloud? Piotr, does this impact that at all?
But you mean the capability of the models?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure if it has actually the impact where they are hosted. So yeah, mostly this is the matter of training and infrastructure and compute power costs. So the more sophisticated, let's say, the model, typically the more computing power you need. But it's especially for the training, right? And a bit less in terms of operating. So yeah, that's the only thing that comes to my mind. Maybe one off-topic thing that came to my mind. If you remember the Blade Runner movie, there is the guy talking to the droid and trying to figure out if it's human or if it's the machine. So this just recollected. This just came to my mind when we were discussing this, trying to identify who am I talking to.
At this very point, it's fair to say that in Blade Runner, the evaluator was not human at all. So which is a nice.
No, it just happens in real life. LLMs are better than us in some jobs.
Yeah.
So it's just like
So, okay,
this.
but today we are to discuss security and also a few days ago, Prompt have published a database, which is a directory of nearly 800 models affected. And we can also see how many research papers and entries are available in the database. But long story short, are large language models a new hype, such as the dot-com business was 25 years ago, or the cloud a few years ago, where the growth of technology was outpacing the adoption of security best practices and measures? What's your take on this, Maciej Grala?
Okay, so first of all, I think yes, there is a hype for large language models, AI, and we are still at this phase of the hype for this technology. And as always, if we want to deliver faster, we don't think about everything. We don't take everything in concern. For example, we see it on the governance side. So like AI Act we just like last year, and we've got AI for last 2 years. So it's even governance is not so fast to adopt to the new today, to the new technology. But even in our companies, it's hard to be aware of everything and how this technology will change our view on everything. But what's better than it was like 20 years ago or 10 years ago, I think we are much more concerned about the cybersecurity. We've got some things like ISO 27001, for example, which is already about the data security, about network security, about classification of data. And when we think on the generic point of view, those are the same laws that apply to the AI. So it's like just the new software, another type of software. Maybe it has some vulnerabilities on its own, but in 80%, 90%, it's the same as introduce the new database server in our company. So we need to go through the same process. I don't know, guys, what do you think about it?
I think
Is
that
it like
there are two
specific
new
or...
things actually that are different. One is that the LLMs are now non-deterministic. So far that the computers have been very deterministic. So you put some information in, and you usually can get the same information. Usually you put the same thing in, you get the information out, and it was very deterministic. So so right now, even for the LLMs, for example, even with the temperature 0, the LLMs can answer differently, which has great consequences both for the attackers and for the defenders, because the measures might not always work. Right? It's always a matter of probability, which can be very high, but not always 100% probable that it will work. And the second difference I see here is that you can now query the IT systems like database and so on with natural language, which natural language is infinite and has wealth of meanings, and it means that there are ways that you can't even imagine, the ways that people might ask a question about some data in your database, or ask your model, because think in how many ways you can query an SQL database, and in how many ways you can order a coffee, right? So even if I sing the whole Lord of the Rings, and at the end I ask for a coffee, it's probably still is a valid order of a coffee, right? So here the same in the large language models. People can put a lot of gibberish in, and still models might treat it and collect, and so to say classify it as valuable information. So these two things, so non-deterministic and the use of use of natural language, are things that we need to take into consideration when looking at vulnerabilities generally in large language models, I'd say.
Maybe I will add one thing to this, that as the mature organizations, they have their security management program, including risk management and threat modeling, and this all should also apply to LLM and LLM-backed applications. But there are, of course, new risks, as Maciej just explained. So when the homework is done properly, they should be then identified and included and either mitigated or accepted. And there are, of course, different approaches to the risks. But it's partly new, as every new technology is. Like virtualization was new, or mobile applications was new, and this is partially new with some unique special characteristics that need to be taken into account.
Yeah, thanks for bringing this in. Actually, I was thinking about the new type of threats, and the directory that we just saw on the screen is also presenting new threats like the humorous jailbreak or the slop squatting technique. There's a paper on it, actually. So I'm interested. What's your take on this? Because it's something at the intersection of psychology and software engineering always. So I'm curious, when you're thinking about those new types of threats, is there any particular type of threat that you find interesting somehow? Maciej Stanisławski, the question is to you.
Okay, so I
Do you have any favorites?
Do I have my favorite type?
Favorite new type of threat? Which
Favorite. I mean, the slop squatting is actually a great one, and because if you think that it's like the creativity of the model that is used in a very bad way, because the LLM is hallucinating some non-existent packages, and an actor, someone with a mind of a villain, just registers it with malicious content behind it, and now there is something that we didn't even think of, right? Like normal, humans, we didn't even think of this, but this is this points to what I'm aiming at is that we should carefully carefully look and browse through the information that we get from the large language models. So do not always trust the data, because it might be malicious in any way. Because I know this sounds trivial, but then again, if we think how we use large language models right now, we often use them as a new Google, right? So we try to find information there instead of just browsing the net. And if we have if you want to apply a chatbot in your company, I think it's worth that you add this extra step of data verification, so that that the quality, the data you provide to your users is of good quality, is true, and is not harmful in any way.
Are there any techniques or guidelines on providing the users with the right answers, so to speak, not even content, answers? Is there anything, Maciej, that rings a bell, thinking about the best practices and guidelines that are attached to that?
Me or Maciej Grala?
You, Maciej.
You're asking about the techniques, right? Are there any?
Yeah, I'm thinking about best practices, guidelines, techniques, whatever that could be the starting point in the journey. Thinking about, okay, how to make the model secure, because the opening point for our conversation was okay. So let's think. We want to bring up to life an AI chatbot, and definitely we don't want it to hallucinate or to be used in a malicious way. So is there anything that we can use as a guideline or best practice to avoid this?
Yeah, I think we from the I'd say it's we have to look at them like we would do on any system that is in our infrastructure. It's worth looking at for the example from the various layers of security, right? So it would be the meta perspective, where we find the use case, we find the appropriate threat scenario for that use case. Then we can look at the supply chain, for example. So where do we get the data? Can it be poisoned? Can we use some federated solutions, so different logically separated data for different tasks, for example, or different models for different tasks, right? Then we can look at the network level. So who has access to the solutions? Are we monitoring and controlling who has access to it? And can we close the gates if needed? Then we can look at the best practices and best people, skilled people. So because best people bring best practices. So if we have, for example, we have OWASP top 10 for LLMs, right? We have a lot of frameworks to test, and we have best practices from the for given tasks. And what else? Tools, I'd say, right tools for the right job, and then monitoring and alerting, which I think is the most important, because if you know what is happening, then you can react accordingly. So I couldn't say it too many times that we need to know what we are gathering and what should alert us, right? In that case, so I think that would be the answer.
I may jump in with some technical example if you like, because when using Amazon Bedrock as a platform for accessing different LLMs from different providers, then there are some mechanisms built in. One is the guardrails that is kind of a firewall for input and output. Of course, it will not make model only give right answers, but with this mechanism, you can filter out unwanted content by keywords or by topics or by numbers, or you can erase personal identifiable information. So this is kind of filtering what gets to the LLM and what gets back, which can limit and limit chances for some unwanted behavior, like discussing not the topics that this application or this user is supposed to discuss. And there is also a big topic of model evaluation, and there are also some mechanisms for that available in Bedrock that you can use some models, maybe bigger one or larger one, to evaluate the models that you train. But this is maybe another thread, another topic to assure maybe the quality of the service that you want to provide. But there are ways to do that.
Thank you, Piotr. This reminds me of the implementation of the chatbot that we have done last year for a major FMCG brand from Poland, Maspex. This was the AI cookbot. And if I remember correctly, then in this implementation, we actually used this best practice of classifying the if the question is even related to cooking. Maciej Stanisławski, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, sure. Yes, we in fact used first we classified even if the question is related to cooking, because we wanted to save tokens first of all, and cut off all the unnecessary information or the questions not related to cooking, in fact. So we classify if the question is about cooking, and if not, we cut off we politely cut off the conversation. Then we extract the information from what the user is asking about, and then we look into a vector database for the relevant. So we do retrieval, right? And we look for the look into the database and find for the right information. And finally, we answer the client politely with the necessary information. So, but the first one, from the matter of security, the first one is very important. So we need to classify, even if the question is malicious, if the question is contains some bad information, or is, for example, not related, or is trying to make the chatbot say bad things about the brand, or all these kinds of all these kinds of threats must be found out quickly and cut off quickly, because this saves so to say tokens and honor for us and for the client.
It reminds me when we were pre-training the model for some specific knowledge and about the evaluation of the model. If we put it into the production, it happened that something went wrong. We don't know yet what happened, but he only talked about bridges. And there was nothing about the bridges in the pre-trained data, but it was like this, and something strange happened. So as you see, evaluation and testing of your model is very important, especially if you are doing something like RAG or pre-train your model. There could happen, as Maciej already said, they are non-deterministic, and there could happen some strange things. So it's very good to have some guardrails, as Piotr said, and evaluation before you go live with your model.
Well, I think it's a totally new topic actually on the definition of done for the tasks related with the LLM development, and for the use case of the chatbot. Well, there has to be a fine line which says, okay, we have done it, it's ready, and so what does it mean exactly that it's ready? How do we know that it's ready? But before we dive into that, because this could eat up 8 hours or something like this, I would propose that for a moment we switch to metaphor of LLM as operating system. I know that this comes from a speech from Andrej Karpathy, but at the same time, I know that great minds think alike, and I know Maciej Stanisławski that you more or less came up with this idea at the same time.
Yes, that's true,
So-
and I want to say it out loud. I was also the author of that statement, although I'm not that known as Andrej Karpathy. But yeah, generally we should think of LLMs as as operating systems, because they are complicated pieces of software, yet we use them daily. Focusing on productivity. So most of us don't know anything about OS internals or how they work, but we take great advantage of their power. So LLM is the new OS, and we should watch. And if you watch how LLMs develop, they're developing just like the operating systems developed in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and further. Because in terms of multifunctionality, in terms of integration, in terms of performance, and what's important here in this webinar, it's security, right?
Mhm.
So we should look how the OS was developed, and in terms of security, and many of these things will be applied to LLMs right now. And if you look at this like at this picture, and the last and if you know what an MCP is, for example, where the ecosystem right now is developing a standard that would allow LLMs to use multiple tools independently, and we can think of the same thing as you would use and them in the LLM in the operating system, right? So think of that LLMs will take more actions and more tools integrated into the large language models, which we will be able to connect through natural language. So well, it's a fun time to live, I'd say.
Okay, I heard this statement like a week ago. I saw it somewhere in the internet, and I was like, what the heck? What do you want? And why is it like this? What's going on? Because I thought we need operating system. It needs to be deterministic. And I thought that someone is like, there is many products that you are already selling and you are telling, okay, this is my software and it's plus AI. So I thought that it's something like this. And now when you told me about it, Maciej, I understand that it's more like a metaphor to how operating systems were developed in the 1670s.
Yeah, we can think of, for example, RAM is the context window, right? The retrieval is the disk of the operating system. It's greatly depicted in this one picture, but generally it's the API. So the tools, connection to the tools via the API, is the same thing that we would use, text editor, calculator, terminal, and so all the
Exactly.
necessary tools that we use in the OS. Now we want to use in the LLM for the main reason is productivity, right? We just want to use it to make money, make fun, all this kind of important reasons, right?
Only before it was deterministic, and now we only just starting to understand how it works internally, like the paper from Anthropic a month ago, right? That is like the first look inside, and we still don't see that much. So it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I mean, this rings a bell, actually. I remember the Dieselgate topic where in the US, I guess, the Volkswagen cars were developed in a way that they knew actually when they are hitting the station to be checked. And that's where they detected that they are being checked, and therefore the engine was emitting much less CO2 and everything to pass the test, actually. And I know for the fact that it's something, Maciej Grala, that you came up with, that maybe we need a new term for what's happening with LLMs. Like, okay, do LLMs work like diesels from Volkswagen? Do they know that they are being tested, plainly speaking?
Yes, it's white. They know, and it's really
Okay.
strange. And what's even the most confusing for me, because okay, they know that they are being tested, so they know about it, but then they think, okay, should I say what they want me to say? So, for example, they don't want me to say that I don't know, but there is sunny weather outside. So should I lie? Or they will know that I lie, so I won't lie. And they are on this level of understanding what's happening. But sometimes when they know that they are tested, they know that it will be easy for us to check them. So they tell the truth, what we want to say, what we want to hear. I know it's complicated, many words, and maybe someone can explain it in.
Yeah, I'm just curious, what are the practical implications of that in terms of models not being deterministic at all, actually, and whereas the requirements towards the operating system is, okay, if I want to play a movie, I want it to play, not play maybe like 3 times out of 4. I would require it to play, right?
So I think for the moment, what we can do from the cybersecurity perspective and what is recommended is to keep a close eye on all the inputs and all the outputs, and also have this, let's say, cycle or loop of really checking even after putting into production, because unexpected things may happen, and it's important to keep an eye on it, yeah, and to
As
have a
Maciej
human
already said,
verify it.
as Maciej already said, monitoring, alerting, that's really important because we don't know what we missed during the QA process. So there could be something in production that do some non-deterministic things and we don't know what's going on. So it's even more important to have monitoring.
There is a nice classification when we think about use cases for Gen AI, which I think fits nicely into the context of our conversation. So I borrowed that from AWS, of course, what you can see on the screen. But when we look at that, I just wanted to think about those new types of threats. So I think yesterday there was a breakdown at Adyen, and some of the biggest merchants also went down. That they couldn't process transactions, so you couldn't buy anything at Zalando or big merchants like this. And of course, this was due to some DDoS attack. This is a very well-known type of attack. But when we take a look at LLMs and contexts of AI chatbots, maybe, in the OWASP top 10 for 2025, a new threat named denial of wallet appeared, actually. So Piotr Becel, I'm thinking, okay, so what we can do using this classification that maybe we see on the screen. What's your take on this? How we can mitigate the risk of this new type of attack, which is not to break down the infrastructure, just to slowly bleed out the competitor?
Yeah, so a small reference to the matrix as you guys showed it. So in the matrix, you can see the let's say explicit assigned scopes, but the idea is that the further right we move, the more customized and self-made solution we have. So it's more like on the build side, and on the left hand side you see what's on the buy side, and the customer or partner have more influence on the whole solution when you move to the right side, but also the number of risks that need to be addressed, or the responsibility is bigger, ending with scope 5 with the self-trained models, where you as a customer are responsible for the whole scope from training until operating, and you have your own model. So then also there are much more threats there that you need to address yourself, instead of having them addressed by a model vendor or application provider. So this is the idea here. So and coming back to the question about denial of wallet. So when using Amazon Bedrock with the models, there are quotas. Like for every AWS service, there is also quota for Bedrock. So it depends which model you use and how are the accounts constructed. There are some, let's say, limits that when they are hit, the model in the on-demand operating way, it will stop responding. Of course, the customers can go around it by requesting provisional throughput, which has a fixed price, and the cost is known upfront, and there is the given performance that the throughput is guaranteed, let's say, that it will be on this particular level. But this is on the, let's say, backend side, on the LLM itself, but this also can be addressed on the application level, when you can put some quotas on the application and some limits on particular user on particular session. So it can be addressed, and it should be, I would say, addressed from both sides.
So the further we go to the right-hand side of the screen, basically, it means that there will be more and more threads that need to be custom managed for the application to be secure, right?
Because your role or your responsibility as a customer grows, because if you train your own, if you buy a model from someone that they already trained it, and they assure if they did it in a proper way, they assure that the model is not, the training data is not poisoned, for example, right? And or there can be an SLA from the from some chatbot provider, for example, or some companion like Einstein in Salesforce, right? Then the provider of the assistant, you can have SLA with them. You can have the agreement that they are processing your data, and there are some penalties, for example, on legal obligations. So the risk is you offload it from yourself to the third party, and the scope grows, right? If you move.
I'm happy that we touched the topic of training the LLM. And one of the questions that we hear from every now and then is, okay, so the customers are asking if they introduce an LLM-based solution into their stack, will this LLM learn on the data that they put as input? Long story short, is my data safe? What's your take on this?
Yeah, actually, two questions in one question. So
Yeah.
let me maybe change the slide to another one. So I can only speak from the perspective of Amazon Bedrock. So it works like that, that after the model, let's say it's Claude from Anthropic, after the model is deployed to the service, then the account, AWS account on which the model operates, which is from the security perspective, it's like a separate logical construct. Then the model vendor, they even don't have access to this account. So the model is provided as is according to the current version and release the model has. Its parameters are stored there. And if you don't particularly or explicitly go for pre-training or fine-tuning, you're using model as is, it's never modified, and the neither AWS has access to your data nor the model vendor. Anthropic in this example, they don't also have access to the model, and the model is not modified. It's only modified by the vendor in their environment, in their lab, and then later on updated, and then your application can use the new model version provided by the vendor again. In no scenario it uses the customer data to train itself. In this approach with just using the model as is, right?
And what about the risk of training data extraction? Because it's another type of risk, but I understand that depending on the way that we are consuming the model, coming back to the to this classification that we see now on the screen, what is the risk of extraction of the training data and
so if you want to go for scope 3 or for scope 4, then you provide the training data and they are stored in S3 bucket in AWS, and it typically is encrypted with can be even customer managed key with KMS service, and encrypted with AES 256 bits key. So the data is safe in transit and at rest because it's encrypted then. And it's
so we should just
not used by any other customer. So no other customer has access to that, or the model vendor.
So from cybersecurity perspective, we should treat it as any other data, as I understand. Yes, Piotr?
Yeah, if it's your sensitive data, encrypt it, yeah, and use the mechanisms that are available to encrypt it, of course.
Okay. Now, I think before in the conversation, Maciej Graja, you already mentioned that ISO 27001 is one of the regulations which already apply to data protection. We know that this is vital for enterprise customers such as banks and insurance companies. This could be either ISO 27001 or SOC 2, depending on the market. But basically, how can we approach the topic of applying the rules of ISO 27001 and SOC 2 when it comes to implementing an AI-based chatbot or a RAG solution? Is this similar to what we do in the case of any other type of custom software built application, or is there any difference? Maciej Grala, I'm interested in your opinion.
Yes. So, in my opinion, first of all, it's a very vast topic, but trying to say it short, it's like, as I already said, introducing AI in your company, in software with AI, is much more or less the same as introducing any other software. Maybe it's not deterministic. In some ways, it's different, but on this very generic point of view, as is ISO or SOC, it's the same as any other software that you introduce in your company. But there are some very special things like AI Act that is coming in European Union, which will have something to do with AI. And maybe let's stop it here because there is many topics, and I see that we are short on time. So,
okay. I mean, we are speaking about many use cases. One of the use cases that we need to be careful with is always use of tools such as GPT company-wide without any policy. So I'm also interested about addressing the risk of shadow IT in the context of LLM. Maciek Stanisławski, do you have any comments on this?
Well, yes, this is I'd say this is a philosophical question, I'd say, because it's about the tendency, for people towards evil and risk. Because so for example, shadow IT is something that people are using to explain the term. People are using things like large language models, like Dropbox, WeTransfer, and all these kinds of tools. They're in a gray zone, so to say. They're not illegal, but they're not completely legal or according to the laws or regulations inside the company. So for example, how would you how do you make people, for example, listen to legal music, right? But it's not by blocking the pirate sites, that's for sure, because it's like Sisyphus work. It won't work. You can block everything, right? You do it by just lowering the price of legal music, for example, or by giving ability for people to pay for one song or sell subscriptions to access all songs. So in other words, it's what you should do, and it's make the illegal not worth the risk, right? So and the same is in the shadow IT. So of course you can have of course the key here is the awareness, so that so you need to educate people on the consequences, and you can underestimate the education here and awareness. And there are tools like DLP or even blocking the LLMs and other sites on the internet gateway, but it's just a band-aid, not the solution. So the sooner you educate and legalize the use of large language models, plus give that little space for creativity, you're winning, right? So that would be the answer. Educate and legalize, and in that matter, provide clear rules so that legal is better than illegal, right? So the risk for the illegal is too big. We just want to use it legally.
Okay, thank you for the guidelines. I think in the beginning of our conversation, when you were explaining about the metaphor of the LLM OS, we also touched briefly on the topic of MCP. I know that it's catching a lot of heat recently, and it's a new hype in itself. Actually, a lot of publications on MCP. Could you both Maciejs, could you comment a little bit on that from our perspective, from the development perspective? What does it mean? Does it mean that we will introduce that into architectures right away, or what do you think?
So maybe I will start what MCP is. So
Yeah,
it's
sure.
a protocol. It was introduced, I think, late last year, something on December or something like this. So it's pretty fresh. And this is protocol for communication between large language models and source of data. There are many MCP already done on the server side. So, like for example, you can connect your AI agent with database, with application. You can create your own connector. So you can, for example, create your own application and set something like API, but with this special protocol. So your AI agent can use it, can get data from your application, from any software you want. It's even available for some things like, I don't know, for cursor on the monitor. So you can make your agent AI agent to draw something or to open files, everything he needs, and you implement for him. But it comes with many problems for our guys in cybersecurity. For example, it's like with another tool. For example, you connect to some API, you want to get data, but you don't know what's behind it. If it's not your API, if it's not your solution, you are not sure who is listening to your data, for example. You don't know what you will get if it's not poisoned somewhere in the process. I don't know if you got something to add, Maciej.
Yeah, but one thing I would add is that I think MCP would occur sooner or later, right? Because if you look at the OSs and how the LLMs evolve, so so far we added some layers, of context analysis, of classifiers, sanitization, traceability, sandboxing, everything. We added ourselves as developers, or frameworks did that for us. So this naturally evolved into open source framework we can all use, develop, and audit. So for example, in like normal web applications, you don't write authentication libraries yourself, right? You use ready ones that are made with securely and with best practices. So soon, and right now, or very soon, you will be using LLM integrations with database, or with the calculator, or with a terminal, or with a virtual machine somewhere in the cloud, done with the MCP, right? So it will be pieces of software that so to say, like a framework that you use out of the box, and it's safe, it's auditable, right? It's developed open source, and that's why I think MCP is a way to go, and we need to we need to look carefully and be a part of the MCP development, because for sure it's going to affect us all, right? In any way, in one way or another.
Thank you, guys. Piotr, any comment on this? When it comes to how that looks from AWS perspective, is this even a topic actually, or?
Not yet. I think it's more on this. When you take a look at the shared responsibility model, it's more on the customer and partner side, this stuff. So I think the guys, they have covered it quite well.
Okay, I mean, I'm still returning to the matrix that I've borrowed from AWS, which I guess that depends on how far you go along to the right side, and how many modifications you might want to introduce locally. Guys, we're a bit out of time for the discussion itself, and still have a couple of questions from our audience. So let's look into that. Is there any difference in terms of security to use a local LLM deployed by ourselves instead of using LLMs like GPT or Claude? Piotr, you might want to take this one.
Yeah, there is a lot of difference, I would say, because on the whole, physical infrastructure level, then to networking and data storage. So if you are using a managed service, similar like the other, the many topics will be covered for you, starting from the physical layer, but then also how you implement networking and filter the traffic, and you may have bedrock guardrails already there that only need configuration, which you won't have in your own implementation. So there's much less you need to take care of if you are using the managed service. If there is of course, reliable provider that also has special compliance requirements met and stuff like that.
It all comes to trust, agreements, and compliance in the end.
Okay, we have a question about is it really harder to provide security for LLM-based chatbots than on any other non-AI custom-built software? I think we kind of tapped into that in the end of the meeting, but Maciej Stanisławski, would you like to comment on this one?
Well, if you take a look at the okay, first of all, if you the only difference, maybe two differences that the ones are mentioned in the webinar during the webinar. So non-deterministic answers is one, and natural language, querying by natural language, is the second one. But generally, if you look at it from the security perspective, for example, like a chatbot and access to your chatbot, which is online, which is public, is no different than defending your web application that you already have online. You need to you need a web application firewall, for example. You would need to defend it against denial of service, and so, or denial of wallet in that case, also. But it's generally more or less the same. You would need to sanitize your inputs and securely separate the data. So for example, your retrieval is not accessible to the outside world, for people not to poison your data, and the model use that in the model. So I think if you have a good understanding of what a framework and how do you secure our applications in your environment, you're going to be good with the LLM, right? You're going to be good.
Okay. And I think this is also touching the topic that you just brought on, Maciej. So you were speaking about the sanitization of the data, so cleanups. And we know that for LLM-based systems, it's much of a problem. Garbage in, big garbage out. So what would be the first step recommendation for a corporation to start cleaning up its data to lower the hallucination risk of LLM?
Me? Should I answer?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. So yeah, I think that I would start from the very end, for the evaluation, right? So you need to evaluate, have right tools for the evaluation of the quality of the information that you're you're retrieving or getting from the chatbot, for example. So if you have this, then you can apply measures. What is poisoning your data, in other words, right? So because there are, of course, things like data governance, and this is like a whole huge topic on a corporate level. So there are organizations that are dealing with it. You can use ontologies, for example, or graph representations of your data to have like it's structured in a better way. And this is like another topic on the level of, so to say, data governance. But focusing strictly on the LLM, chatbot, and security, I'd say evaluate, right? Always evaluate what you're getting, and start from there. And you can go as far as the data governance process in your company.
Okay, thanks, Maciej. 1 minute to go, so I think one more question, and then we're done. I know that we have a question about governments, but we also have a question about why some customers are tokenizing their data to put it into an S3 bucket. And I'm curious, Piotr Becel, about your answer for this one. Just make it quick, please. 1 minute.
In 30 seconds?
Yes.
So yeah, that's also a technique for handling sensitive data, and every customer should do a proper risk analysis and choose the techniques that are the best for them. Yeah, so it's the only quick answer. So some will encrypt, some will tokenize, some will do both, some maybe will do none of them. So that's as far as I can go on such a generic level.
Okay, you've managed in 30 seconds. Thank you, Piotr. Now we have some query. So if you feel like having a follow-up meeting to discuss a little bit in depth in the context of your organization needs, let us know. We'll be happy to get in touch with you and follow up. Of course, the recording of this webinar will be made available shortly for you as we finish. Thank you for attending this event, and we will see you hopefully next time for another topics related to AI and chatbots. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much.
Bye.